In the House, it is Scott DeLano, Senator District 50, Harrison County. Good morning, Scott. How are you, sir?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Man, I do apologize for getting you on this late in the session. You should have been here day one.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here today, though.
How's the coast doing?
The coast is doing real well. I'll tell you what, I've got a bad pollen problem up here in Jackson. It's called wreaking havoc on my sinuses, but it's nice to go back home on the weekends and get
It's not on the coast?
Air.
You don't get the green sheet on the coast?
Well, what I'm saying is that on the coast we have a nice salt breeze that comes in over the water, and we don't have the pollen.
Oh, we don't have that.
Yeah, well, we do on the coast, and it's wonderful.
Well, the last time we had it was Katrina. I don't think we want that, but we had a nice tropical breeze during Katrina.
Well, you need to come down the coast sometime and enjoy it when it's nice and beautiful.
I'm down as much as I possibly can in the past, and it's a beautiful place. And I just, it's the great thing about Mississippi. When you start talking about how long the state is, it takes a few hours to travel from the Tennessee line to the Gulf Coast. So it's a larger state than most people think about it until you have to make that trip. And the diversity in our train of thought is in our language, in our culture, is different, but we're all united as one Mississippi, and in that we have commonality. But
that's right.
All right.
Beautiful.
We just thank you. I didn't even write that down. You heard the conversation, or maybe heard the conversation with your counterpart over in the House. He's not speaking highly as far as any prospects of getting this MAEP bill through the House at this late date. What's your thoughts on this, Scott?
Well, I think that we have to realize that for the past 4 years, and you can really say the last 14 years or 12 years, the legislature has, under Republican control, has put a lot of money and a lot of emphasis on trying to help education throughout our state. I think that public education is very important for everyone. I think that what came forward yesterday in the Senate is not something that just came up overnight. That's something that's been worked on for a while. Chairman DeBar has certainly been working on this for a while, and I know that Briggs Hobson, our appropriations chairman, has worked diligently to try to find additional dollars to go into education. I think we're furthering the discussion on what's best for Mississippi. I would like to see something move forward. MAEP formula we know is flawed. It's been broken. We've looked at it a number of times over the past 12 years, and I think that more conversations that we have about how we can improve educational outcomes in our state, I think is better, and I certainly support that. And let's see how this moves along. We know at what time of the session this is, and there's going to be some debate back and forth. But I think what's been brought forward is something that starts a good conversation, and let's figure it out and see what we can do to make it better.
Help me out on the process here. Does this have a bill name, or is this still in the making?
No, if I'm not mistaken, what we took up with was an appropriations bill yesterday for education. And we put it was $181 million reoccurring funds that would go into education, or what we would suppose would be reoccurring funds. And that's normal in this process, and we'll continue to work that through the conference weekend and through the budget process over the next 10 days or so.
Was there any sinister reasons to have a joint meeting on this, or is that just because of deficiency, or what?
No, I think that's, whenever we talk about education issues in appropriations, and quite frankly, when we talk about anything in appropriations that involves other committees, there's always an encouragement to have committee members attend. And I think it was actually really good to have all of the education members there to hear about the description of the changes that the Senate was going to make to the MAEP formula.
For points of clarification, the $181 million additional check that has to be written from our revenues is only if the recalculated formula passes. It's part of the bill, right? In other words, that bill would cost us, and this is recurring every year, $181 million more. Would that top it out at $2.8 billion a year from taxpayers in Mississippi?
No, so I'm going to try to divorce that into two separate issues. You've got an appropriations request and appropriations vote for an amount of money that's going to go towards the MAEP formula. And then you have another, I guess it would be the general bill that came through the Education Committee that actually makes an amendment to the formula itself. So it's two separate bills the way I understand it. And if we amend the MAEP formula and that's successful to go through the process, then it would require the $181 million to provide the additional funding that was discussed yesterday in the committee. So if there's any changes throughout the process, through the negotiated process with the House, then we'd have to look at it and see what those impacts are going to be on both sides, both the amendment as well as the total appropriations for education.
I mentioned to Speaker Pro Tem Jason White a few moments ago, there are a lot of states who are going full speed ahead where there's Republican control on school choice in some form or fashion in their states. And some, even in the South, and I know Arkansas and the new governor there is damned and determined to bring school choice to the people of Arkansas. And it's a little bit disillusioned to the people of our state. If we can't do this with Republicans in the House and in the city and in the Senate and also in the governor's mansion, we'll never get it done. And with a supermajority, we're kind of wondering exactly why this is not even. I mean, we weren't even talking about fully funding MAEP during the summer or in the beginning of the session. But nobody's talking about school choice.
Well, I think there's always an underlying discussion that's going on about how do we improve the educational opportunities for students. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that you can have a conversation about how do you improve the outcomes or the opportunities without having an honest discussion about choice and choices for parents to be able to relocate their children to the best education or the best public schools or schools that are necessary for them for their specific children's needs. I know we invest a whole lot in the coastal counties and just the areas that I'm familiar with in public education, and that's an attraction that we use to get people to move into our area and to attract businesses because we know how important public education is and people who have to make decisions on where they're going to live, where they want to work. And then these are things that we've got to do, and it's a larger conversation, but I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with our local school boards and our local school districts to provide some of the best opportunities there are in the state. Yeah. And I want to attract more people to come to the coast for that reason.
It's all well and nice to have conversations about that and invite those conversations, but what happened yesterday was more than a conversation. As far as fully funding MAEP, it was a joint committee meeting to formulate some type of legislation, and school choice has not got that far at all. So there are two different things about having a conversation and having a legislative joint meeting on fully funding education with another $181 million. Have you seen any numbers at all as far as in your purview how much money was made or put into education above and beyond the $80 million total since the lottery began, and where that money has been used? Yeah,
I think I've certainly seen the numbers. I just can't recall them off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of extra dollars that go into education funding that's outside of MAEP. And one of the things that I've always wanted to see with the MAEP formula was that we included all of those add-ons into the formula itself, or we do it in a way that we have a better picture of what our base student costs are for education across the entire state, and not have multiple layers of funding for education that is very hard for people to track, and also for the school districts to be able to strategically plan for 5, 10, 15 years out. If the legislature keeps changing these add-ons or how we do line items or how the formula is funded, it makes it extremely difficult for school districts to plan for their future needs.
Just explain to people how that formula is met now compared to when we come back here, compared to what the alternative is or the real recalculation. Because one of the things that they're talking about is on the actual student attendance. And that sounds like a great idea, but knowing in past that some of the ways they count attendance is just about as fabricated as you could possibly get. So after you make that change, then you've got to get a hold on something that's standardized and that you can trust as far as the attendance that way. So I'll let Scott DeLano comment on that and some other bills when we return in just a moment. And Scott DeLano is my guest. I was looking at Senate Bill 2749, one of the bills that act to amend the school board compensation, and I think each person serving as a member of the school board of any school district shall receive per diem in the amount of $112 for no more than 36 meetings, so basically around $4,000 a year. And also, this bill says for a person serving as a member of the school board of a school district with less than 5,000 students enrolled in the school district, the person shall receive an annual salary of $4,000. Is that out of your committee or another committee?
Well, Paul, I'm the chairman of Technology Committee.
Technology, okay.
And while we do discuss these issues in Education Committee, I know that there's been a lot of discussion over school board pay for the number of years, but I think that's a very tough topic that I would rather my chairman speak to and not necessarily myself.
Let's speak to technology because you had some bills that did not make it, but you did have a couple of bills that are still alive. Which are they?
Well, I'll tell you what, the biggest bill that we had, I think this year, was something that was vetoed actually last year. It was a ransomware bill that dealt with entities within our state who are victims of ransomware attacks. Last year, we wanted to just make sure that there was a notification process whereby if an entity was attacked by a ransomware issue or a ransomware attack, that they had to notify ITS and the proper officials because there was not a duty until this bill passes for the agencies to notify anyone specifically. So the governor had some issues with the bill as was passed last year. I was very glad to work with his staff over the past year or so to make sure that we covered all those issues. That bill actually made it through the entire process this year, and it goes into effect at the end of the year. And then we also had the TikTok bill, or a form of the TikTok bill, which basically followed up on what the governor did in a letter where he wanted TikTok to be taken off of state agency devices as well as networks. We've broadened that a little bit more to make it so that it's not something that's punitive specifically to just TikTok, but we've allowed ITS to establish a list of known security risks and known applications that have security risks to our state devices and state networks. Provide that list to the public, and then we were going to ban those types of traffic across our networks.
Did that one die in committee, or is that
Nope.
Because you got SB 2870, which is National Security on State Devices, and that one died in committee. So there's another bill you're talking about.
Yes, sir. It would be Senate Bill 2140 is the bill that we're currently working right now.
Any of the other bills that you're talking about as far as that you have a part in as far as technology is concerned?
Yeah, we are working, going back to education a little bit, computer science curriculum. We did pass a bill a couple of years ago to require our school districts to provide age-appropriate computer science curriculum from K through 12, and that will prepare students that will provide an equal opportunity for students to have access to computer science in our public schools, and that's going to be a very important bill that as it continues to move forward, we make technical amendments. We're making it better and easier for our school districts to comply with those requirements.
Here's a great question. Which bills are causing you some acid reflux when you go home and meet with the people? Is this EV? This EV bill has got to be one of those, is it?
No, it really isn't.
Not?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That bill was something that I think that for the most part, a vast number of the public would agree that if they're going to buy a vehicle, they want to be able to at least have some service and at least have some support here locally. And I was fully supportive of the efforts that came forward from the Automobile Dealers Association. And as a car guy myself, I understand how important having support from the manufacturers are. And I just don't want to see automobiles become the next iPad where you lose one or two generations of an electronic device, you throw it away. And that's in essence what I'm seeing happening with some of this EV automobiles that are out there, because there is no support, there is no support service for them. And I think that's going to become an ever-growing problem as these cars mature and become, if they extend out past their end-of-life cycle.
I can't even imagine anybody buying a used EV unless something happens as far because, I mean, we had a report, was it last week before last, that some of the insurance companies are saying I'm not even sure what the cost is to insure these things because for the most part, if you have an accident, and we're not talking about a major total, they're totaling these things that the batteries are damaged. It just costs more for the battery than replacing the car. How the heck can you afford the insurance on this?
Yep. Paul, it's a maturing market. There's a long way to go on this to see how this is going to.
Yeah, but it's maturing too fast. We're being pushed in this by politics.
Well, I wouldn't call that a maturing. The maturing of the market is going to be what happens to the actual automobile over its time of life of time. And if it costs $20,000 to replace a battery pack on an EV, then there is no residual value of a car after the first 5 to 7 years. And that's where we're kind of getting to that point right now. And once we get over that threshold and cars are sitting on the side of the road or filling up landfills, I think that there's going to be another pushback from the public for some of this stuff that's been going on.
You are right. The word is maturing because there are so many things we don't know. We do know now when you buy a used car, you really want to know how the person treated that car as far as oil changes and things such as that. And the perspective from of a battery operated car as far as EV is concerned, how did they charge? Did they charge when they were supposed to? Because much like any other battery that you're talking about, if you didn't wait for it to expend all of its energy and then wait and charge, you're going to lose some of the life of the battery. If it's hot or if it's cold or when you charge, how you all of these different things. So if you're buying a used battery, a used car, you just don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people get.
I'm not even sure if there's a paper trail that you can go back and check.
No, there's not. But right now you can't buy a new vehicle or say a vehicle that's from 2017 forward without having and this is a combustible engine that doesn't have 6 or 7 computers that are in it. And if you have to do any type of service, you've got to go to a place that has technicians that are trained and capable of reading those diagnostics and working on those types of vehicles. And I have yet to meet anyone that is a technician with a Tesla or anything like that, where you can go by and get updates or do things with your electric
I'm confused. Scott DeLano is my guest. I'm confused, Scott, because regardless of who it is, it could be Dodge or it could be GM or it could be Ford, but all of these people are putting EVs on their lots. I mean, that's the big thing, whether it's the Ford F-150 and all. So they've got to be preparing for this as far as servicing, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do a lot of training with their local people, and they have the service that are here locally. And I think that's the most important thing. And look, let me go in and just say this. I know that there's innovation. There's always going to be innovation. I want to be a champion for innovation, not just within our state, but just in general. I'm a champion for innovation. I love innovation. I love new technology. But I think that when you come to a decision where you're trying to help the public make decisions on one of the most important purchases that they make in a 10-year period, I think that there is some additional responsibility and that we should have some additional support out there to ensure that there's additional support out there for the public.
Well, also this convergence in the future, and I'm not sure how far ahead it's going to be, where we are asking taxpayers to pay for a lot of these charging stations, and we have Washington, D.C. asking for the same thing. And at the end of the day, we don't have the government energy or Mississippi Power or anybody else doing this. So it's got to come back on a convergence of the taxpayers funding a company to sell them something. And how do you work with all that? It just seems like you're in bed with strange bedfellows there.
Yeah, I do not like any of the federal policies that we've received, and that's been shoved down to the states. And I understand there's some grid upgrades that need to occur in our electrical infrastructure, and I do support that because electrical consumption is going to increase over time as it has since the invent. But here we are. We're going to move through this stuff. Before we get off, Paul, I want to talk to one more segment about the blackout car tags that have come around and that have been very popular throughout the state. We've sold an incredible number of tags for the blackout. Right now, they're only available if you want a personalized tag or a vanity tag. We're going to convert that this year, hopefully through the rest of the session, so that you can get a regular tag. You can walk in and buy a regular tag, or you can have an option of paying about $38 more for the blackout tag. That $38 goes to help law enforcement and fallen officers across the state. It's a great way for the public to support or show their support for public for our first responders in our state, and I think it's a great opportunity.
You have been all in on that. Well, that was your idea too, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, it was. It was something that we started several years ago.
Yeah.
Just glad to be able to
Scott, I will say this. I've never heard of a tag going viral, but that black tag has gone viral.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll continue to go.
Congratulations, man. Don't be a stranger anytime. Give us a call. Scott DeLano.
Thank you.